Hello, ELIC 30. This is Michael, and we are in How to Be Human, an Autistic Man's Guide to Life, continuing in Chapter 3. We're now at the bottom of page 63. Energy leads us to a conversation about what makes Jory's mind disengage and retreat, literally shut down. The short answer is people or environments related to people. Working outward from that point, Jory talks about how he was first able to more fully engage with the outside world. Jory: in a stressful environment, language and speech would be one of the first things to go. That is because the way I think is not really in terms of language. Closing down communication language-wise actually protects my mind and my ability to think. If I am a castle under siege and the walls are getting thin, pulling up the drawbridge and shutting down communication is how I would protect myself. The need to shut down like this hasn't really happened to me since I'm able to remember things about my life. I feel that very distinctly. But I'm also aware that if I were in an extreme environment and needed to shut down, it would be because I've reached a stage where it's possible my mind will no longer function correctly. And it might not be fully recoverable. Not only could I no longer process what's on the outside, but what's inside would be damaged as well. Interestingly, what makes me want to shut down or come very close is anything related to people. I can stand next to a waterfall, a noisy nature environment with a similar decibel level to a shopping mall, and the effect would be very different. I'd be fine by the waterfall and miserable at the mall, in the mall. Which is strange, because if you think about it, it's the same decibel level, and it also involves a lot of sensory stimuli. But there's a distinction. The mall involves other people, and the stimuli comes from people. It's even different with other living things. When my pet bird, Federer, screeches really loudly, that can sort of impair my thinking, but not to the same extent as people or people-related noise, such as cars, city noise, just the sounds of people moving, especially people I don't know. Most people can somehow subconsciously auto-tune out noise. I'm not able to do that. I have to do it actively, and that takes effort. It's fine, especially if I want to be there, but it does drain energy. And for years, I couldn't do it. But I know I have to be out of my ideal environment. Probably when I was a teenager and Mom was encouraging me to be in places I didn't want to be, I learned that I can be anywhere if I have some tools to be there and am okay with being there. Now, there are events I want to go to, and I will expend the mental energy to do those things. I enjoy movies and plays. A harder place is something like a bar. I personally don't really drink. The only reason I would go is because someone else I know is going. I try to be aware of making the effort with Mom, for instance, because Mom likes doing things that I do not. But sometimes I say, why don't we do this instead? Which I can do with Mom, but not with a larger group. Talking about memories, both missing them and making them. Much of Jory's early life is a blank. He existed in a kind of void, struggling to communicate, struggling to process and make sense of the world around him. He has almost no memories of that time. Only the briefest flashes of images and experiences are preserved in his mind. Jory. The very first thing I can remember is a rocking horse that I did not like. I don't know when we had the rocking horse. It might have been when we lived in Kentucky or Indiana. I have no idea why I have this memory, except that I used to have a nightmare about the rocking horse, and I was definitely a little afraid of the rocking horse. From Indiana, I also remember getting stuck in the snow in the front yard one time. It snowed really badly. We were at the end of a cul-de-sac, and my brothers built a snow slide. I can't remember if I was using the slide or was just in the snow, but I fell down. It freaked me out because the snow was deep. I couldn't see and I didn't know where I was. I remember a few other things from Indiana, but they're very sporadic. I vaguely remember watching Barney on television, and I vaguely remember what Mom looked like at that time. I think my little sister ran into the corner of a piece of furniture, but I'm not sure if that was in Indiana or after we moved to South Carolina. Very few of my memories have any physicality. Like the cold day and the snow, I wouldn't remember the feeling of cold. The memories are also all random, and mostly either objects or events or environments rather than people. I generally remember the move to South Carolina. By remember, I mean I specifically remember one instance from moving, from moving in, where the living room in our house had wood floors and was the largest room and was very empty. I had my Blue's Clues blanket, and I remember my friend James was there that day, but I don't remember specifically meeting him. Okay, let's pause for a moment. Near the top of this page, he mentioned watching Barney. Barney was a very popular children's television show. My son spent hours watching Barney, especially late at night when he couldn't sleep. I'd say, okay, let's go watch Barney. And Barney was this large, purple, friendly dinosaur. And there were children, and they would sing. It was a very happy, really kind of a not exactly an educational show, but it was a very positive show. Blue's Clues was also a children's show that ran about the same time. We also watched Blue's Clues, lots of episodes of that. So he was of that age where he had been watching these shows, and so he knew these characters. Continuing on. The reason why it is difficult for me to remember has less to do with language and my lack of being able to communicate than with the fact that I was beneath the surface. If you are the one beneath the surface, you don't have much opportunity to observe and create memories. Perhaps why I remember the rocking horse and almost nothing else in the room because it's almost nonsensical that I could remember this specific thing in such seemingly high detail, but nothing else, is that for some reason I had a glimpse through the surface, and that was one of the few things I observed. LW. When do you feel like you more consistently breached the surface? What changed? Jory. Okay, pause here. The verb breach. This is the same verb that's used to describe when whales in the ocean, when whales jump up and you can see them over the top of the ocean. So she's using the same expression for Jory. He was below the surface and was able to come up and observe things. Jory. From my understanding of all the stories I've heard, I was not good in any way at communicating anything. What I've been told is that my reactions to things bothering me in the environment were often very visceral. I had a lot of tantrums, a lot of screaming. I did not cope very well. It was that I couldn't express myself, but it was also that it wasn't fully me there in the first place. I feel like it doesn't make sense to say uncommunicative because it wasn't me. Then there was a period where I was stronger, if you will, still beneath the surface, but like barely. Somewhere around age 7 or 8, there's more, but it's still blurry. It was a gradual process until I was more in control, until there was more of a balance between me and autism. There were still times where I couldn't fully maintain that equilibrium, and I would still react to the environment. Not until at least when I was a mid-teenager was I at least nominally in control most of the time. Okay, pause. Equilibrium, that's a great word. It means basically balance. That's a good working synonym. Equilibrium is balance, where both things are there, but neither one is heavier than the other. Continuing. LW. What were environments that you tolerated and environments that you just wanted to escape from? Jory. One thing that Mom and I would do most evenings after we moved to South Carolina is watch the nightly news and then Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. I really enjoyed that. I always liked spending time with Mom, but spending time in a really autistic way. I never wanted to be more than a couple of feet from Mom. If she left, I would go crazy. I don't remember this, but I know from other accounts that I would go crazy if she left to go to the grocery store or whatever. Pause for a moment. Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. These are also two very popular television shows, except they were game shows, so more geared toward adult viewers. Continuing. I remember very little about school before I was homeschooled, starting in 2nd grade. I do remember leaving for the bus, which I did not like because it meant I had to leave the house and Mom. I remember just waiting for the bus in the front room in the chair, watching out the window with Mom. Bad times. But other than that, I don't remember too much from the school itself or what I did at the school. I have a limited subset of things that I know about myself. But it's curious to me because I can't really necessarily say with any confidence that this bit is mine and that bit is from sort of shared family knowledge. An example is I was very attached to Mom and was always very upset when she would leave, even if I was left with my older brother Tyler or somebody else I really liked and trusted. I have some recollection of what that felt like, but I've also been told a lot about my reactions to that as well. So the extent to which I'm remembering my own reactions versus somebody else telling me what my reaction was at the time is unclear to me. I know through a combination of limited memory plus shared knowledge that I made a transition from being upset when Mom left, standing by the door and refusing to do anything until she came back, to being upset when Mom left, but then hanging out with Tyler and getting really excited when she came back. Eventually, I moved on to I'm okay with Mom leaving for short periods of time and not getting upset about it, and then I was fine with her coming in and out at any time. Okay, let's stop there for this video, and we'll continue the chapter in the next video.